The sun had barely started to rise over the dry plains of Arizona when Thomas Reed, a quiet cowboy known around those parts as Old Tom, saddled up his horse for the day's chores. Life on his dusty ranch was lonely. Just him, his old barn, a few cows, and the endless wind that whispered through the canyons. He had fought through years of drought, hunger, and solitude, yet something in him refused to give up. That morning, as he rode toward the canyon stream, he heard something strange, a faint, desperate cry echoing through the rocks. At first he thought it might be a coyote caught in a trap, but when he got closer, the sight stopped his heart cold. There, clinging to a broken log in the river, was a small native child, no more than 10 years old, half drowned and shaking from the cold. Without thinking twice, Tom jumped into the freezing current, pulling the child out and wrapping him in his coat. The boy's lips were blue and his eyes filled with terror. Tom spoke softly, "You're safe now, son. Ain't nobody gonna hurt you." He carried the boy back to his ranch, lit a fire, and gave him water and bread. The child didn't speak much English, only fragments, but Tom understood enough. Wolves had attacked the tribe's camp during the night, and in the chaos the boy had fallen into the river and been swept away. Tom stayed by the boy's side through the night, feeding him, keeping him warm, and guarding him like a father would his own blood. For the first time in years, the old cowboy felt a purpose again. As the firelight flickered across the barn walls, he whispered, "Don't you worry, kid. You'll see your folks again. I'll make sure of it." The boy, exhausted but trusting, drifted into sleep while Tom kept watch, his rifle by his side. But something in the wind that night felt strange, too quiet, too still. Even the coyotes kept their distance. Tom couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Somewhere out in the darkness, unseen eyes were fixed on his barn. He didn't know it yet, but his act of kindness had already sent ripples far across the desert. Word was spreading fast through the canyons. One of the white ranchers had saved the lost, son of an Apache warrior chief. And in the morning, that chief would come, not alone, but with his entire tribe. As dawn broke, Tom stepped out to feed the horses, stretching his arms after a long night. But before he could take another step, the earth began to tremble faintly beneath his boots. He looked toward the horizon and froze. Dust clouds were rising in the distance, thick and wide, like a storm moving across the plains. Then he saw them, riders, dozens of them, no, hundreds. Warriors dressed in feathers, leather and paint, their horses galloping in perfect unison. Spears glinted in the sun. Tom's grip tightened on his hat as his heart pounded. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. He turned toward the barn where the boy was peeking out, eyes wide in both hope and fear. The boy whispered one word, "Father." And in that moment, Tom realized the child he'd saved wasn't just any boy. He was the son of a powerful Apache chief. Moriwanti. Morning light glowed gold across the valley as the thunder of hooves filled the air. 200 Apache warriors rode toward Tom's ranch, their faces stern, their presence commanding. The leader rode at the front, a tall man with a beaded chest plate, wore paint on his cheeks and eyes like carved stone. As the dust settled, the riders formed a perfect line in front of Tom's barn. Not a word was spoken. Only the wind and the rustle of feathers broke the silence. Tom stood firm on the porch, the rescued child by his side. Though his pulse raced, he didn't flinch. He had faced storms, bandits, and death itself, but this was different. Then the chief dismounted. He walked slowly toward Tom, his shadow stretching across the dirt. Tom tipped his hat respectfully, saying, "I reckon this young one belongs to you." The chief stopped, looked at his son, and for the first time, his hard expression softened. The boy ran to him, throwing his arms around his father's waist. A murmur swept through the warriors. Relief, gratitude, emotion. The chief knelt before his son, speaking softly in Apache, then turned his gaze to Tom. He placed his hand over his heart and said in broken English, "You saved my blood. My people remember." Tom nodded quietly, humbled. "Didn't do it for thanks, sir," he said. "Just did what's right." The chief signaled something, and a group of warriors stepped forward, each carrying gifts, handcrafted spears, blankets, and even a horse, adorned in painted patterns and feathers. They placed them at Tom's feet. The chief spoke again. "You have honor. We no forget Cowboy with brave heart." For the first time, Tom smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that hadn't crossed his face in years. "Much obliged," he said softly. The warriors mounted again, and as they rode off, the chief turned once more, raising his spear in silent salute. The boy looked back from his horse and waved, eyes shining with gratitude. Tom stood there long after they disappeared into the horizon, the gifts glinting in the sunlight. That night, he sat by the fire outside his barn, feeling something new inside him, not loneliness, not emptiness, but peace. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Guess kindness don't need no reason." From that day on, stories spread across the bare plains about the lone cowboy who earned the respect of an entire Apache nation. Some said he was protected from then on, that no tribe or outlaw ever dared touch his land again. But Tom never spoke of it. He just kept working, helping whoever crossed his path, believing that one good deed could change everything. And friends, if you believe kindness still matters in this world, if you believe good deeds never go unnoticed, then make sure you subscribe to my channel, because stories like this remind us that even in the wildest places, humanity still shines through.